She says she's not a celebrity divorce lawyer, though she has done divorces of many celebrities. She's been married for 30 years to the same man, so in my books, she's a big celebrity. She's literally written the book on divorce, a step-by-step guide to getting divorced. She's known as tigress, shark, troublemaker, splitting headache. I like her already. Please welcome renowned divorce lawyer, Mrunalini Deshmukh.
कितनी बार कहा सुबह ऑफिस जाने से पहले बता दिया करो क्या खाना है।
ये सिर्फ मेरे बारे में नहीं है। तुम्हें क्या लगता है तुम्हें ये सब खाना चाहिए? हो गया तुम्हारा वेट लॉस। तुम्हारे पैसे, तुम्हारे पास पैसे इसलिए क्योंकि मैंने कमाए। मैंने
तुम पर गुजरी है।
अरे क्या कर रही हो?
तुम पर गुजरी है। तुम पर क्या गुजरी है?
स्टॉप इट, स्टॉप इट।
कभी मेरे बारे में सोचा है? जिंदगी भर इसी डर में जीती रहूं कि कब छोड़ दोगी मुझे?
आपने पापा को कभी डिवोर्स क्यों नहीं किया?
अफेयर नहीं तो कुछ और। इसका मतलब ये थोड़ी ना कि हाथ ऊपर कर लो और निकल पड़ो।
Please, Deshmukh, join me on stage. I'm going to get to the point quite quickly. I don't know whether many of you have seen the movie Dil Dhadakne Do, but it kind of sets the setting for what I would like to ask this renowned divorce lawyer. A lot of women in the ages of, after being married for about 20 years, being part of a family where a business grows, find themselves in a situation where their husband may or may not be faithful to them, but they are stuck. They are unable to get out of that marriage because financially they're not independent. They do not have the wherewithal or the independence to do it. So I want to ask her in the first place, what are the steps you should be taking so you are not in a situation like that, so that you do have the choices if it ever comes to that situation? Because women have an equal role to play in the wealth that was created by the unit together. So could you comment on that? What are the few things that women can do under the current law?
Yeah, at the outset, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to interact with such lovely women over here. So, to answer your question, the first important thing that all women need to do, and I think I will start with all mothers that need to do, is to empower their daughters in a manner which is not only in terms of education and resourcefulness, but in his or her own capacity to be able to stand on his or on her own feet. And the reason why I'm saying this is that today, even today, to not provide for the daughter at the time of marriage in terms of a residence or in terms of some kind of a financial security would not be a correct thing to do. So this, according to me, every mother within her own right, or every parent, I would say, rather every father and mother should do that. Secondly, and most important, is that what happens in a situation, and which is a very practical situation that we sort of come across every time, that you get married, then you devote, say, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in a marriage, things don't work out, and they don't work out for various reasons. Either the man has become from rich to richer, or from the rags to the riches, or whatever the stage may be. And for him, then the woman becomes a secondary thing, for whom the woman does, his wife rather, the wife becomes more of a piece of furniture which is there in the house, and he wants to treat her in this manner. There is a limit to which a wife can tolerate, there's a limit to which she can adjust, there's a limit to which she can adapt, because this is what she wants, and she wants the marriage. But what happens if she loses all those levels of patience? And at that point of time, if she demands for a divorce, whether she will be entitled to get in law, as we speak, her rights of investing 20, 25 years in a relationship. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the situation as we are here today, it's no. Because the law provides only that a woman is entitled for maintenance or alimony and residence in terms of what her husband has provided she is able to prove what his wealth is. And that's a long, long, arduous process which you have to go from one court to the other, and it's really, really, as we speak today, a very frightful situation for women who are there. So then what do these kind of women do? I mean, do they fight? Do they try to settle the matter? Or do they approach and knock the doors of the court to find out what their options are? In my experience as a lawyer, I have seen quite a few of them. I think only 10 to 20% of such women, and what I mean women is those who've devoted themselves to the relationship but who are at the losing end, are the ones who really go and knock the doors of the court to get justice for them. Rest of them, unfortunately, adapt and adjust to it.
No, so, you know, in a relationship, very often as a couple, you make a decision to say, even though you both are well educated and well qualified, one person takes a back seat and says, okay, you know, I'll spend the time with the children. In that situation, if a woman decides to do that as a joint decision, but 10 years later the husband is much richer and then he goes, well, okay, you're a piece of furniture, I want to get rid of you. She's kind of helped him come to that place, but she doesn't have any, you know, share of the business. So what should you do? Should you become a director?
No, absolutely. And I think this is where women have to be wise enough that at the time of marriage or, you know, a couple of years post the marriage, when they
in the honeymoon period.
Honeymoon period, yeah, as they call it. So in that honeymoon period, be very clear with your spouse that these are going to be our division of labor as far as the family is concerned. This is going to be as far as our finances are going to be there. If today I am going to take a back seat as a mother, say for 10 years I'm going to take a sabbatical or I'm going to work flexi hours part-time, not being able to earn the amount of money that I would have earned otherwise, there has to be a provision in the name of the wife, which could be in the event of an uncertainty of, rather in the event of a marriage not being certain and the relationship going sour. In fact, in the morning, when the morning session which was there and the Minister for, Ms. Menaka Gandhi was answering, and that was one question which I don't know how many of you heard that why is it today that we are still not recommending laws where a woman post her marriage has equal and proportionate rights in the assets of the husband which have been acquired during that period of marriage. Now, this is not something new or this is not something very sort of, innovative. You have it all in the Western countries. You have it in the UK, you have it in some other European countries, and surely you have in a lot of states which are there in the United States of America. So some of them have clean cut 50%, which is, there's a vertical division which is there. These are the assets. Suppose the assets are worth $100. There's a clear division which is there. 50 goes to the man, 50 goes to the wife. And these are marital assets. That is assets acquired over a period of time. Now what happens in our kind of Indian setup, if I may say so, and most of them, you get married seeing the family name. Okay, so the family is well-known family, well-to-do family, business family which is there. At the time of marriage, the man, the boy who's going to get married, may not have much with him or standing in his name. But you don't see that, you don't ask how much does he earn. I mean, you just see most of things which are there. However, at the time of divorce, what happens, and this is the thing that we face in our courts, is when women go and ask for their share of the husband's assets, there's hardly anything in his name. Because it's a family business, there's a lot of jugglery which is done. The husband is shown as a salaried director earning 1 lakh per month. However, the lifestyle which they have enjoyed during the honeymoon period and when things were fine is that of a person earning 25 lakhs per month. Because then you have overseas holidays and you have all these parameters which are there. How would you put this equation that this is the lifestyle I led for 15 years, but today when I go to a court of law, the document shows that the husband is a director having a salary of rupees 1 lakh per month. Now these are the difficulties and the law cannot travel beyond it because these are the documents which are the only ones that assist the court in ascertaining what is the income of the husband to be able to give it to the wife. So today we must have some kind of an understanding, and I think it could also be made as a part of a time getting married. And I'm going to also touch upon a different subject of prenuptial thereafter, where there is a clear demarcation of the assets which we are going to acquire over a period of time. So say from time 0 for 10 years, we acquire X number of assets. What would be my share? What would be your share? Post 10 years to 20 years. Because we do not want to have a situation that for the safety of the men, that women get married because they are gold diggers and they just want to get married, stay for a year or so and get 50%. We want to have equality. We want to have a fairness in this whole thing. So there could be some kind of demarcations like this that can be done percentage-wise, and that would be to the advantage of both the husband and the wife, and there would be less of litigation, is what I feel.
Do you think that Indians are a bit squirmish about things like this? I mean, it just sounds so contractual, right? I'll take 10% if I stay 1 year, and I'll take 20% if I stay another 2 years, etc. It's like almost as if, I mean, it's practical, but it's not very loving. So.
But then Indians were also not used to divorces, right?
Right.
So we did not have such a high rate of divorce that we are having today, say 15 years back. So if today the changes are happening globally and they are reflected in our Indian society, and one of the changes are that the rates of divorce have definitely gone up, then these are the questions which never arose 15, 20 years back. So these are the questions we are facing today. And if these are the questions we are facing today, we need to find a solution. So though it may sound a little clinical, a little contractual, to borrow your word, and not so say savory in terms of a relationship of marriage which is there, somewhere down the line you need to be very, very practical about it, because it is better to be safe than to be sorry. And being safe is just being very clear about the finances. And this also applies to women who are working and who have their own finances. Because please appreciate, in a court of law, the courts are not just going to grant alimony to a wife just because she is a wife. The courts are going to grant alimony and maintenance to such a wife who is unable to maintain herself and live a life with dignity in the same status that she enjoyed during the period of her marriage. So this is also what the law looks at. So it's just not that you get married, you have 50% cut, and this is what you get. So there are a whole lot of maths that goes into it before the courts arrive at some kind of a figure to be allotted to the wife.
Is a prenup valid right now?
Well, it's one of the most important points that I want to stress upon, that prenup is not valid as we speak. The prenuptial agreement, and just for the clarification of some of us who are not aware, is an agreement which is entered into by the intending couple, the man and the woman, prior to the marriage, stating that when we get married, as we intend to get married, in the unfortunate event of a divorce, what would be the arrangement between us with regards to the finances, with regards to the assets, and when I mean finances, I'm talking about the liquid funds, what would be with regards to the assets, and what would be the understanding with regards to the children from the marriage. And these are the things that are incorporated. But may I tell you on a more practical note, the reason why the prenuptial agreements, though very popular overseas, are not valid in India is because under the Indian Contract Act, any agreement which is contrary to public policy is a null and void contract. So you cannot have a contract which is against public policy. Now, in marital issues, what is a public policy? A public policy is that a woman is entitled to be maintained and looked after by the husband post her marriage in the event of a divorce. And then I'm talking about a woman who does not have any means to support herself. What happens when things are hunky-dory between the couple and they're so much in love that they cannot see, and the wife writes out, or the intending wife, she writes down and says that, no, I love my husband too dearly. If we do get into a divorce, I'll not seek a penny from him, and that my love for him is, very, very romantic kind of an agreement. If such an agreement and the marriage breaks, and the agreement has to be tested in a court of law, will the court say, and I'm talking about the Indian courts, that, well, wife, you have signed this agreement voluntarily, you're going to write there, your lawyer is going to help you write there, this is done voluntarily, without coercion, without undue influence, we've both taken independent legal advice, all that normal standard clauses are there. Now why are you saying that you have no money and you need the court to award you some maintenance? That's when the courts will come to the rescue of such women. And that is why a public policy or a public statute is one that it would be the duty of the law to protect the women and children. It would be the duty of the law to provide maintenance for the wife in the event she is unable to maintain herself, and any kind of an agreement to the contrary entered into between the parties, whether that agreement will subsist or the courts will be able to overrule that. As we speak today, it will be the court's prerogative to overrule the prenup agreement which is there. And that is the reason our legislators, is what I believe, this is my perception, I may be wrong, are hesitant to have prenup agreements. This morning, the minister said that there is a recommendation from the Women and Child Development Ministry for prenups. If they are made legal, I think it will benefit a lot of us.
So what can you do practically at this moment in time? Since you can't have a prenup, to put in an MOU or make sure that you buy jewelry at regular times or get property put in your name? What do you do? So you don't have to be in this situation.
I think what the women need to be is to be a little smart enough in the whole thing. And just not be, blinded by love. And I'm not talking about, I'm not trying to sort of propagate any kind of deceit or any kind of other, sort of intentions that you should have. Of course, you must love your husband. Of course, you must want and you must work towards having a long-lasting relationship of marriage, because the institution of marriage is a must and there's no substitute for it. However, in the process, please ensure that you are not shortchanged. Please ensure that you are wise enough. Do not be greedy, but definitely take care of your needs in the unfortunate event which is there. And it is nothing wrong into it. It's be forthright, be honest, and please tell your intending spouse that, listen, these are my insecurities, these are my reasons. Today we are seeing everything very hunky-dory. We are all rose-tinted glasses we are wearing and we feel we are Romeo and Juliet. But that may not be for all of us. Hope it is, but if it is not, we don't want to be bashing up each other and sort of going in the court of law and having a free-for-all. Let's have an understanding that if we have to part, let's do it with grace, let's do it with dignity. And I think there's nothing wrong in the woman who is intending to get married to the person to be very clear-cut. If the man says that no, you're being too greedy or you're being too commercial about it, then probably he's not sensitive enough to understand what your concerns are. Then I think you need to think once again.
So you mentioned that marriage is most important and there's really no substitute for it. Can you give us some advice, because you also work on reconciliation between couples who are going in for divorce? What is the most important thing for keeping a marriage together?
Well, most of them feel that love is the bond or the thread that keeps the parties together. In my understanding, love comes number 3, number 4. What really keeps the couple together is the trust and the respect. It is the respect for the other person, that is the spouse, and it is the trust in him or her which is there. And I do not believe in these fancy things like love. Please do not get me wrong, not because I'm a divorce lawyer that I'm very cynical about it or I'm very caustic about it. But what I believe love is a very temporary phase which is there. For a long-lasting relationship, the respect for the other person and the trust in the other person is the edifice of it. And the last and the most important thing is, somewhere down the line, we've lost the art of tolerance and adaptability. No two people are identical. No two people are going to be together for the rest of their lives unless they learn to give up some of the things that they look for, accept the other person's things which are there. Unless you do that, you cannot survive any relationship. You can't have friendship for that matter. Marriage is a long-drawn thing. Even in friends, you do sort of adjust to each other. And so long as this adjustment is there, the sense of giving up a little bit, and I'm not saying only the women have to do the sacrifice. I don't come from that school of thought. I'm saying, but you do have to give up certain things, and only then will you be able to achieve, if you're looking for a long-term relationship which is going to last for years. I think this is very, very important for us to have that. So I think these are the 3 important things. I don't know, we have counselors here, Varka and others. They do a lot of marriage counseling. I'm sure they have a lot of issues. I mean, they can give a lot of more tips on it. But from my basic understanding of it, because I'm a lawyer, so but as a lawyer, if any couple comes to me, and trust me, if I feel that there is not enough substance, and what I mean by substance is there is not enough reason for this marriage to break, I am the first person to tell them, guys, you're too early in this chambers. you please go to some counselor, go to some professional, go to a clinical psychologist, go to any kind of, agencies which will give you help. Try and work on it. If it doesn't work, I'm here. The chambers are here. We can take it from where we left here. But let's not rush into it. And I think this is very important because I feel when clients come to me, some of them, and I'm not saying all of them, they come in the heat of their moment. I mean, either they're instigated by someone or they're very angry or they just find out that their husband has had an affair or they suspect that their husband has an affair. And that's it. That's the last thing I want and I don't want to see him for the rest of my life. Just tell me, where do I sign the papers? Where do I get da-da-da-da-da-da? And it's just like a volcano they are. So we need to calm them down and we need to tell them, as any good professional would, that listen, think over it. Just let's see what the whole thing is. It may not be true, it may be true. Is there a way that we can work around it? Because snapping relationship is easy, working on it is difficult. But please, let's see if we can work on it and only if it's inevitable, let's snap it. That's the way I look at it.
You think with extramarital affairs on the rise, we need to relax our ethical codes, and that's one of the things you would put as adjust or tolerate? No. Or you think it's a very personal choice?
No, I'm not saying that. See, extramarital affair or a relationship outside marriage, today that's one of the causes also, in fact among the different causes or the reasons for the divorce, the high rate of divorce, is also this inappropriate relationship or extramarital relationship. And that is because, I mean, we have men and women today, probably proximity is there. We work throughout the day sometimes. Some of us who have to work overtime, they work at odd hours. We travel together for business. We travel, and all that proximity brings about this kind of thing. Now, people ask me this question very often. Do marriages break because of extramarital relationship? Or does an extramarital relationship happen because the marital relationship is already broken? So it's a double-edged thing. So there is a situation where the marital relationship has really gone to the dogs, and yes, there is this temptation that just comes across to you and you get into a relationship. Or the second reason may be that you put a facade of a happy marriage, but at the same time, on the side, you have this relationship, which is an extramarital relationship, and under such circumstances, what does the woman do? Because she always believes that the marriage is good, and this is a man who's gone and who's having an affair. I'm not saying you should tolerate any kind of extramarital relationship or any kind of inappropriate relationship. But a call has to be taken, and please pardon me if I sound very, very different from what others wouldn't say. But a call has to be taken. What is in the longer interest? Somebody accepting, admitting, and saying that I made a mistake, I'm awfully sorry, I should not have done it, but it happened. I'm a human being. I got attracted, I did this, etc., etc. Should that confession or that admission mean the relationship is over, or you overcome that, you in a way condone that in the larger interest of the relationship, whether you have the children? Now, this is a choice the person who is affected will have to take. I don't think as a lawyer I can give you any sure short formula what is to be done.
So a supplementary question to that. There's been some changes in the law regarding live-in relationships. So does this mean that somebody who's having an extramarital affair and has a live-in mistress, does she now have rights along with the wife?
Okay. Now, this is a concept of live-in relationship which is pretty recent, I would say, which is recent in the sense not the concept of live-in relationship, but the recognition of a live-in relationship is a pretty new concept. And the reason behind this is that today there are educated people who do not want to get into marriages because they feel that they are not suited for marriages, but they are okay in sharing a relation. The question is, what happens to such women in a relationship where she and the man are in a relationship, they live in together, they share the same house, or whatever the things are. And if the man leaves her, or the man does not provide for her, or the man in a way cheats on her and goes away, does she have any rights? So in 2005, the protection of women under the Domestic Violence Act was there, which was the act came into force, in which for the first time, whatever were the rights of the wife were also the rights given to a lady partner who was in a live-in relationship. So in a way, I would say that yes, the law, the legislation has accepted in the live-in relationship. But in this live-in relationship, please remember one thing, the law is very clear. It is that couple who otherwise would have been eligible to get married, but choose not to get married and would want to lead a life akin to that of a marriage. I know I'm sounding a little confusing, but I'll come to that later. But who want to lead a life akin to the marriage, such kind of relationship is accepted and recognized by law. What it means is that if a married man leaves his wife and enters into a live-in relationship with a woman who is a single woman or a divorcee which is there, would the law recognize this relationship as a live-in relationship? The answer to that question is no. Because the law does not want to encourage adultery, does not want to encourage extramarital relationship, but the law wants to provide for such women who are in a live-in relationship, but who are either, they're subjected to violence or some kind of emotional violence, physical violence, financial violence, then the law comes to their protection. So this is the thin line of difference as far as the live-in relationship is concerned.
In your experience, do children bring couples closer together? Or do they bind a marriage, or there's something that creates problem?
Okay, yeah, this is a very interesting thing because a lot of, if you see most of the families where the couple is having an issue and suppose a joint family or at least your in-laws are there, they say, ek haath bacha ho jane do, everything will be all right. That's a very popular concept. Ek haath bacha ho gaya, so everything will be all right. So the question that comes is that an answer to mend a relationship? So the question is, because your relationship is deteriorating or it's going south, you must have a child to do it? Or should you have a child only when the relationship is stable and strong? In my understanding, only when the relationship is stable and strong is when you should think of having a child. Do not use or give birth to a child to help him or her mend your relationship. It doesn't happen and doesn't last long.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the floor. We have time for 2 questions, please. Yes, Sarita.
I really enjoyed what you spoke to us about. I have one question though. Throughout, you have been talking about adultery from the man's point of view. Okay. What about the women?
Because I'm here at a women's summit, you see, so I have to be very careful. we just have the women more.
Is a woman's adultery more difficult to prove, do you find cases like that also coming into you? Are they less or are they equal to the men?
I mean, unfortunately, I would not say equal, but I would say 40, 60.
Really?
So,
40?
Yeah, yes, of course. There is a large number of
But you're
rise.
only talking about the men.
No, I'm talking about, yes, so out of say 100 women, 100 couples which come, there are 40 couples where the wife is an adulterer and 60 of them where the man is an adulterer. And if you ask to answer your question, is it difficult to prove it? The parameters are the same. Whether you have to prove adultery in case of a man or in case of a woman, the parameters to decide them are the same. But yes, there is an increasing rise in the number of women also who are getting into, let's not call it adulterous, let's call it inappropriate. Is that better?
If a woman is found in an inappropriate relationship, is it harder then to get her custody of the children?
Well, yes. Now, custody of the children, please bear in mind, depends not on the rights of the parties, but on the best interest in the welfare of the children. And one of the considerations for the custody is the character of the person, because the parent, I mean. So if you have a very abusive, violent man, whether he would get the custody, no, that would be something which would go against him. Similarly, if you have an adulterous woman or a woman, or you're having a number of inappropriate relationships, and if that is proved in a court of law, would it go against her to get the custody? In some cases, yes. Because it is, these are the values that you are going to inculcate in your child, and that is why what would be in the best interest, who would be a better parent to inculcate those values would be one of the considerations before the court.
Given our social fiber, it would probably be worse for a woman to be an adulterer than a man,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, one last question. Anyone? Mala?
I have a little bit of experience in dealing with women's issues and women coming up with all sorts of reasons for divorce. Are you finding an increasing level of frivolity and less tolerance in women over things that were really not important, but which lead to a breakup of relationships? So I'm finding that infidelity, yes, is one major cause, and as a society evolves, that does get enhanced. But there is a lower level of tolerance that I'm sensing in women for simply frivolous issues. I mean, we heard Western cases of, the toothpaste being squeezed or the husband
From the middle
or
snoring.
something. Are you finding that in India as well?
Yes, of course. That's exactly what I said. That when people come to me, either the man or the woman, and when they narrate all these instances, and if I feel that they are not strong enough, that's exactly the reason I refer them to counselors. To direct them that what they are talking is really very frivolous, and a marriage cannot be just tossed off for such frivolous reasons. Yes, there has to be respect. Yes, there has to be tolerance with each other. But that doesn't mean that at the drop of the hat you go to a lawyer's office and then you say, okay, I just want to go for a divorce because for some frivolous reasons. And that is why some kind of a direction in terms of counseling is extremely important. And going to a counselor who would weigh the pros and the cons of it and explain to them would go a long way to teach them that how it is all about adjustment and tolerance. Somehow we've lost that art of tolerance. And that is why, you'll be surprised to know, I have people coming to me within a month of marriage. A month of marriage, and when we ask them what is the reason, they say, we can't get along. Now, how is 30 days going to determine whether you can get along or you can't get along? That means you do not, and I ask them, normally the question that a lawyer comes, is it sexual incompatibility? Is there some issue there? Is that the reason? So they say, no, that's great. Well, that's great. Then where is the question of not getting along? And I can understand that the initial pleasure wears out after, say, 8 years, 10 years of marriage, and this no longer becomes a binding factor. But this is where it is, that it's a very short-lived way and a very short-viewed way of looking at the relationship. And that is where, and in fact, we have, I always believe, and I know we are really running off short, but I'll take not just 30 seconds. I had a couple which came to me, and this was 4 years back. Young couple in late 20s or early 30s. And so, like any lawyer, say, yes, when were you married? So what happened in your marriage? These are standard questions. They said, ma'am, we are not married. So I said, is it for your friend or something? They said, no, we intend to get married in next 6 months. And that is why we've come to you. So I said, have you come for a prenup? They said, no. We have come to find out from you as to what are the do's and the don'ts that we need to keep in mind, because we want to get into a marriage and we need to know about it before we get married. So I said, ideally you should go to a counselor because he or she will be able to tell you. They said, no, we do not want to go to a counselor, and please, no offense to any counselors, they do a brilliant job in premarital counseling also. So, but they said that a divorce lawyer who sees n number of cases knows what are the things that go wrong, and could you please guide us so that whenever we are committing that error in our relationship, probably these words will be a warning bell somewhere to say that, hey, you're going on that path which might lead to divorce. Just take your steps back. And that is why we come to you to take your advice. So I thought that was a very positive and a very proactive way of looking at a relationship. And this is about emotions, not about money, of course, but this is more about how to deal with it emotionally.
Thank you so much for all that straight talking, especially a good tip. So if you are getting married or you have children who are getting married, send them to a divorce lawyer before, so you won't have to send them later.
That's not what I meant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Deshmukh. Thank you, Kali. I would request the Group CEO, Ashish Bhagga, to kindly come on stage and give a small token of appreciation. Thank you so much. Thank you.